Alright, everybody, maybe it's a little bit on the nose to reply to two Keffals-related things in one day, but my editor did send me multiple topics relating to her, and I did want to cover them both today. So, and they're both pretty relevant, so obviously we talked about the femboy finster discourse, and now we're moving on to the woke star discourse. Yeah, so I assume most of you are aware of Keemstar, okay? He is like the drama YouTuber. I think most of us probably have a pretty negative opinion of Keemstar, and I think most of the internet does, honestly. But somehow he persists. He persists nonetheless. He is also a bit of a shit poster on Twitter. He has basically supported the idea that the election was stolen from Trump and the Democrats, Biden, cheated in the election. He's supported election fraud. He's done denialism of January 6th. I remember I got into an argument with him on Twitter a while ago, like around the time of January 6th. He was trying to argue that it was fake or a false flag or that it wasn't a big deal. And we had like a big Twitter argument, and that was a thing. He was playing defense for that. Keemstar is certainly a right-wing figure. And so it was interesting when he started tweeting things such as trans rights and co-tweeting trans rights with Keffals. So it was interesting. Like, okay, has Keemstar started to change? And he even started to quote tweet people saying the head of my team is as a trans woman. You know, I'm not transphobic yet, I respect trans people. And it seemed like it was pretty legit. But then later on, I ended up seeing Keffals tweet, I talked to Keemstar on stream for 2.5 hours, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't think he's supportive of trans people. It was funny how she tweeted it. And yeah, I guess I'm not too surprised, but I want to see how it went. I want to see what Keemstar's takes are, so that's the name of the video, is Destroying Keemstar in this heated debate, so we're gonna go ahead and give it a good old watch. I don't know how much of this we'll be able to watch, but we'll give it as much as we can, guys. We let him cook. Now, we have become a Keffals reply guy. I will say, my immediate reaction was to basically sit back and watch how it goes with Keemstar. If he is truly making positive changes politically, I would want them to be met with positive reinforcement, but not too much positive reinforcement, because he could literally just be trolling, right? And it seems that's what he was doing.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Not bad.
Oh, I got it. Oh. Let me mute that.
Hold on a sec. Yeah, how have you been doing?
Good. It's been a wild, 24 hours.
No, she's
Sorry,
muted.
this is the worst time to have... This is literally the worst time to ever have technical issues. But I'm roughing it. I'm gonna get this to work. Were you trending before I woke up? Because I woke up and you were trending with like 17,000 tweets.
I don't know. It was the same thing. Like I woke up around 1 p.m. and I was trending. So I don't know when that took place. I think like I'm all over Reddit constantly. So I think maybe it had something to do with Reddit.
I think people are just really surprised by this. I mean, like I was. I thought this was a bit at first. Is it?
I mean, no and yes, right? Like, so I was confused. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. There was this meme going around, which I wasn't sure if it was true or not. Or
I think that's possible, Hakon. What's up, by the way? I think it's definitely possible. Keemstar does seem like he just wants, like, validation from some groups, and then, like, negative attention from other groups, right? He thrives off of it.
Or like a news story, I guess, where a trans woman was claiming to freeze ketchup packs to then insert and fake having or pretend to have like a period or whatever. And I was like, is this real? Because
I'm always doing this.
I had no idea. And then people were saying that that's just bullshit or whatever. That's just a meme, right? And I see a couple days later, a company put tampons in a men's bathroom. And there was a little note there saying that they're going to put them in women's and men's bathroom. And I was like, well, why does a trans woman who doesn't have periods need a tampon? Like, it was confusing to me, right? But then I deleted the tweet because I didn't, I started thinking about it. I was like, wait, trans men still have periods. And so I started getting shit for that. And I responded like, fuck off, I'm learning. Because I was. And it went nuts. It went viral.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's really cool, as you don't see a lot of people changing their minds on this topic. But obviously there's a lot of fake.
Do we think he's being legit here? Because Keemstar does troll. So he could literally just like snap of a finger, turn to a different person later on in this debate. That is completely possible.
Fake news that goes around about this. Like, I don't know if you remember, there was a thing like months back, maybe a year ago, about a student who was using a litter box in school, and this like made the round in the media. And it turns out it was completely fake. It never actually happened.
Yeah.
The reality of that, by the way, the real story wasn't that it was a cat litter box or something for like furry students to shit in. It was a bag of like a substance that is kind of like cat litter that is specifically for school lockdowns whenever there's a mass shooting, like a school shooting or a disaster, hurricane, anything like that. And they have to lock down the school, and the plumbing goes down, or they can't access a bathroom, or like you're locked in a classroom for like hours and hours and hours on end, and you have to do something with kids having to go to the bathroom, adults having to go to the bathroom. It's also often used by janitors to clean up vomit. Like if you were ever in school and like a kid vomited in class and you saw the janitor come in to clean it, you remember he would like sprinkle some like kitty litter looking stuff on it. So Republicans basically just turned that into like being some kind of like furry kitty litter, kids identifying as cats and shitting in litter boxes in the bathroom propaganda the right pushed. It's always lies. If it seems like it's too insane to be true, it probably is, so check on it. Check on it. I like the design of Keffals' raft. I have not played this game yet. Maybe I will one day. Is it multiplayer? Maybe we can hop on Keffals' world. Keffals is.
Yeah. The actual reason was way more sad. They had like litter boxes in classrooms as part of like a kit for things that they might need in case there's a shooting and they can't leave the classroom.
Well, there's a lot of like nonstop lies and manipulation about so many different people and topics to push an agenda. Like, you know, there really is a culture war 24/7. I would challenge that, you know.
What I would interrupt and say is, okay, but what are the opposite sides of the culture war, Keemstar? From your perspective, on one end you see what, and on the other end you see what? What are the two sides that are fighting? I would like to hear Keemstar explain what he thinks the breakdown of the culture war is, because I would guess he thinks it's like far left man-hating feminists, you know, like BLM hating white people and like critical race theory, yada yada, all that like right-wing propaganda stuff. And then everything on the other side is like conservatives and chill people that are just trying to do what they want. I have a feeling he doesn't really factor Nazis being a real substantial, large aspect of this whole internet culture war thing. A lot more than they have been for a while, especially lately.
No, I haven't really changed my mind. Why have I been labeled a transphobic person? Why? Where does that come from? What's the basis of that?
Like one of our earliest interactions was you intentionally misgendering me, if I remember correctly. And we were in a... What was the actual interaction? I remember the back and forth. But
so you tweeted out something along the lines that somebody released your dead name, and I asked you, what is a dead name? Because I didn't know.
I think this is a different... I feel like this one was a different situation. But I didn't like bring, you know, I don't have like a folder of receipts. I didn't want to have this conversation to like fucking grill you or anything. I mostly just wanted to figure out where you were coming from because people are really...
She was looking at the grill when she said grill.
Shocked at this turnaround.
I don't think it's a turnaround. I don't really think it's there's a turnaround. I mean, I wish like chat and all these people that are saying that I'm transphobic could produce something that shows that I'm transphobic. I know I've had my issues with pronouns in the past, and I've spoke out about pronouns and how fucking confusing and, you know, when you start having like all these different
So online, a lot of people can be very obtuse about their politics. You see, despite the fact that internet anonymity is a thing, a lot of people online still decide to hide what they truly believe. They will use dog whistles, virtue signals, and even play dumb to basically signal that they know what point is being gotten across to the audience they're trying to get it across to, but to basically leave those that aren't in the know out of the know, right? And a very common way of doing this among the right, among transphobic activists, quote unquote, hate merchants, I should say, is to basically act almost fake confused. I assume most of you are familiar with what I'm talking about here, right? Where it'll be like, Oh, all these pronouns are so confusing. He, she, they, it, whatever it may be, right? Like they'll like talk about a trans person and then list four pronouns instead of just using the preferred pronouns that are very easy to access. It's like an over exaggerated fake confusion with pronouns, because if I'm being completely honest, pronouns are not that hard, okay? What's hard is if you've known someone for a very long time and you're very close to them and they come out as trans and they change their pronouns. It may be hard to get used to a new name and get used to new pronouns, but like, it's doable. It's certainly doable, you know? I don't know. Just a lot of conservatives will play up how supposedly hard it is to handle all these pronouns now in order to make an argument that trans people are going too far without outright saying it. Because if you outright say it, then people can recognize what you're doing. And even on the internet, being an open bigot, well, it's much more accepted than it once was. It'll still get you a fair amount of hate, you know? Like, being an open bigot's still going to get you a decent amount of hate online.
These Zems, like, dude, I get lost in the sauce. I'm 40 years old. Like, this is like, seems silly to me, right? Does that make me transphobic? Does that mean like I hate trans people? No.
No, I mean, I don't think that means that you would hate trans people. But I think, like, you know, I've been out as trans for 12 years. And
I'll let Keffals
and
stop.
I actually don't, I think I've come across one person in those 12 years who used like Z, them pronouns. You know, I think there's just this tendency on social media to really amplify it and make it seem like it's a much bigger thing than it is.
Yeah. Chat, why are we giving this well-known lying asshole a platform? And it's like, that's what I'm talking.
This is something that I really hope you guys avoid if I ever have a conversation like this. I really need all of you as audience, like chatters and audience members, to know when you comment stuff like that in the chat, you're not helping. You're just not helping. You know what does help? Saying insert the streamer you're watching, W. That's all you gotta do. Xander Hall W. That's it. If you go on some deranged rant in the chat, all you do is give my, or in this case Keffals, potential debate partner some sort of ammo to use against Keffals herself, or me, or whoever it is that's doing the debating, right? When you antagonize the debate opponent, you're giving them something to latch onto. Is like, well, here's why I have such a big problem with you. Yeah, if it was like people being welcoming, like, we're so glad you're accepting of trans people, Keemstar, he'd probably be smitten with all of the support. It could even just be sort of like just Keffals W would literally all it would take, right?
Talk about just the nonstop, like, fucking, what am I lying about? Please produce evidence. But it's a lot of just saying shit. It's a lot of false allegations nonstop with no receipts to back it up. I don't think many people know this, but it should be known. The individual that runs Stromler, that is the head of my company, which I'm, I guess, most known for on the internet, is trans. She's been with me for 7 years. It's like my company is ran by a trans individual.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm confused on why I've been labeled as this transphobic person that has a change. Like, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
something I have to say right now is that the trans community is not a monolith, and every single trans person is different in how they think of, like, I have met so many trans people. Like, I've met trans women who are, like, drop dead gorgeous, pass super well, they look amazing. And yet they will still argue with you, like, angrily as to why they're not a real woman. You literally have a vagina. You literally have a vagina. Why are you arguing that you're not a real woman? You have a vagina. What do you, like, you're, like, I've literally gotten into that argument with True Scum online before. On stream, on Twitter, etc. There are a lot of trans people out there that are just self-hating. Some are dumb. Some are just kind of chill with transphobia. It doesn't bother them because they're more thick-skinned. Some believe that stuff. Some are too afraid to speak out against it, and when it's in their spaces. There's just a lot of reasons why there are cases where transphobes will be able to say, oh, I have a trans friend. I don't understand why people say I'm transphobic, and how they could still, even if that's completely true, they have a trans friend, why that trans friend might just kind of be cool with it. there are tons of trans people out there that are not as activist oriented as you'll see on the internet. Just true. Not every person who's part of a marginalized group is a political activist.
The only thing that I remember having an issue with was like the Leah. Okay, there were a few fights, but I don't remember a lot of them. But one thing that really sticks out in my mind was the stuff with Leah Thomas. Like, because I don't think that trans women should be excluded from women's sports for a variety of reasons. Like the first one being like there really isn't a lot of hard evidence that trans women are like.
My favorite argument is like, do you think that like the enfranchisement of an entire like minority group of people is worth trying to create strict boundaries? Like basically the outcome of like fighting against trans people competing in the sports they want to compete in equals things like cis women who have too high testosterone count not being allowed to compete. This has happened. You get TERFs doing transvestigations on cis athletes. You get genital inspection bills, like in Florida, for student athletes, where they have to have their genitals inspected if they want to compete in girls' sports. Yeah, it's just... Y'all thought we forgot about the Florida genital inspection bill the transphobes did. The left are the groomers, by the way.
Like biologically at a significant advantage to cis women. In fact, the only trans woman to ever compete in the Olympics got her fucking ass kicked.
Cock inspection.
Well, I think it's, the problem with a topic like that is blanket statements, right? Because it's got to be on a case-to-case basis. The argument that I hear Joe Rogan make a lot is in reference to MMA, right? You send someone in there to fight that's a trans woman against a biological woman, and his argument is you just have an advantage. You absolutely have an advantage. Now,
okay. This would be a moment where, like, for this convo, I would probably pause the game and put a text document on screen to write down certain points. So that would be something to laser in on, okay? And I think there's a way to do it without, like, going too aggro on Keemstar. So I noticed that you just used the terminology, like, trans women and biological women. I don't want to jump down your throat or anything. Let me just give you a little bit of background, a little bit of internet background. So a lot of the time you'll see transphobic, like really full-on transphobic, like people who openly say they don't think trans people should have rights and they're dangerous and they're bad, will oftentimes say that basically use the term biological woman to refer to cis women as in like real women and trans women as like an other, right? Because they oftentimes will want to dog whistle what they truly believe, or they'll not want to get banned for certain posts or whatever, right? And so a lot of people in the trans community have come to associate that terminology with transphobes. So that's an example right there, Keemstar, of why some people in the trans community might have been led to the opinion that you're transphobic, right? Just kind of assumed, sure, but like you got to work with what you know.
Again, probably.
And I would hope we can all agree that people who believe bad things like transphobia are typically not honest about it. Many are. There are plenty of honest neo-Nazis out there that have the big swastika tattoo, but like being a Nazi is not a generally accepted thing. I should clarify, do you really think that most Nazis are open about it, or do you think that they lie about being Nazis? I'll let you think about that. Because I think the logical conclusion is that most Nazis probably lie about being Nazis. Nazis aren't very good people. Lying tends to be something that's like in their utility belt.
On a case-by-case basis. But the blanket statements, I don't feel apply to actual truth.
Yeah, I think the problem is like so much of this discussion is wrapped up in a culture war. So the people who are against trans women in sports, a lot of them have an ideological motivation for doing so, and they don't actually even care if there is or isn't a biological advantage. For them, it's like they do not want trans women to be in women's spaces whatsoever. They're essentially arguing for a form of segregation.
I think what people are afraid of is somebody taking advantage of your community, right? Let's say you have some like sex pest or some creep, wants to gawk at women and is pretending to be trans just to go into the women's bathroom or
I'll let him finish.
Changing room at a gym or something to gawk at women.
Yeah, I haven't.
So the problem with this is that what if is a nice story. It's a nice what if. However, this hasn't really happened in the notable scenario. And even if it did, why would a predatory sex pest man need to live as a woman to infiltrate women's spaces to do sex pest shit? This isn't necessary. It's not necessary. The only reason to to hone in on this idea of these dangerous bathroom sex pest, whatever's, is to harm trans people. That's the only reason it's focused on, at least by those that perpetuate it.
I haven't actually seen any cases reported like that, because I feel like the types of people who would do that stuff wouldn't go through that kind of effort in the first place.
I don't have it available now, but there's a video that I just saw yesterday where a woman is at the gym complaining that a man is, looking at her in the gym, in the changing room, naked. And she called the cops. The cops get there and the cops say, well, this is a tricky, social issue. And really nothing was done.
Okay, I mean, even if we have one random example of
looking at somebody in the locker room isn't illegal. Locker rooms are a public place. You have to touch someone or assault someone or something in a locker room for it to be illegal, right? If somebody just stares at you in the locker room like fucking Slender Man in the corner, that's creepy and weird, but it's not illegal. Also, yes, people like this do base their entire worldview off of YouTube videos and anecdotes, not off of data, trends, or what have you. I should remind all of you, by the way, that the amount of times that the rate at which trans women are assaulted in both or either men's restrooms or women's restrooms exceeds that of cis women being assaulted by trans women in anywhere so many times over, it's insane. There have literally been stories of women in women's restrooms assaulting trans women, gang assaulting trans women in said restroom. That's far more likely, I think, than trans women being sex pest men who just decided to go incognito, like it's some, I don't know, Hitman game, to go sneak by the armed guards outside the bathroom, as we all know those exist, to get in there so they can do their thing. It sounds right if your entire worldview is made up of thinking about these things for 3 seconds and thinking you've got enough street smarts to put these things together, and then never double checking anything you think you know.
Of this happening. I feel like you could say the same thing about literally any community of people. I mean, the majority of the times that these kind of situations happen, it's not going to be trans people. It's going to be 99.9% not trans people. They're going to do this shit regardless. I think it's just, yeah.
Yeah. And to follow up your point, I mean, there are bad actors in every single community, and then that community gets labeled as supporting, the bad actors' thoughts, opinions, actions, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, it's the same thing that Fox News does. It's not even just with BLM, but I mean, when the protests weren't happening prior to George Floyd, when things were a bit calmer in regards to civil rights pushes for against police brutality, the argument was basically, hold on, let me rewind. I forgot what I was gonna say. Goddamn weed.
Say the same thing about literally any community of people.
Yeah, the argument, basically what Republicans and Fox News spent their time doing prior to all of the protests and everything was they would just feature, and they still do it now, but they did it a lot more back in the day because they had less to cover. They just feature a video, CCTV footage of a black guy, usually a black guy, committing crime, and then it would either be a black guy or a black woman or a Muslim person or a gay person, just any minority really, committing a crime, right? And then they would just kind of speak in such a way that led you to a certain conclusion if you were a Fox News viewer, right? These thugs think they can come to these streets and just destroy everything. They'll assault you on the street. These garbage shithole cities, these crap hole cities. You can just tell, where you're supposed to, where your mind's supposed to go when you hear these euphemisms that Fox News would use back in the day. And it would just be nonstop, hour to hour. Here's a video of a black person committing a crime. These thugs. And then, do what you will, with that, right? And it's just every single time. Every single time, that's what they would do. And it's just, if you're racist, you're supposed to get the message. That's their goal.
I mean, the majority of the times that these kind of situations happen, it's not going to be trans people. It's going to be 99.9% not trans people. They're going to do this shit regardless. I think
And
it's
to
just
follow,
yeah.
yeah, and to follow up your point, I mean, there are bad actors in every single community, and then that community gets labeled as supporting, the bad actors' thoughts, opinions, actions, et cetera, et cetera.
No, yeah, I mean I do hate that. Like I hate the idea that I need to change how I act because there are outliers who make people look at the outlier.
You guys want to see a really cool demonstration of like a racism test, like an internalized biased racism test? I like to use it on like gun nuts, okay? I want you to imagine that the gun this guy is holding is normal, all right? Like just a normal gun. How do you think the average American feels when they see this image? I think the average white American in particular probably thinks, hell yeah, brother. Good old country boy. Might want to drink a beer with him. What's he out there, he out there shooting some clays? Maybe some birds? Hell yeah, but like the average American, like your average Fox News viewer would see this image and think this guy is based. This is an example of a based Second Amendment abiding, etc., etc. They would love this man. This is Demolition Ranch, by the way. They would love this man. However, you show most of those same conservatives this image that came up on Google, and I think they might have a different reaction. Like if you put some like neurons, like electrodes in their brain, and you like flash these two images back and forth, I feel like they'd have a different reaction to both, despite the fact this is the same thing. It's the same picture, but I think a lot of conservatives would probably have a lot of preconceptions, notions, and negative emotional reactions to this image that they wouldn't have to this one, despite the fact that in both of these images, we just have some strapping young men abiding by their Second Amendment rights. And they're even both pointing the guns at the camera. I specifically found images where they were both pointing guns at the camera. He's holding an incy-beansy pistol. This guy's got the scary gun. This is the one that looks like it could probably put a hole through you from 500 feet away. I know that was a bit of a stun lock, but I feel like that little thought experiment, that little test, is pretty nice for kind of analyzing how a lot of Americans have double standards when it comes to race that a lot of them don't even realize. Like, analyze that shit, guys. That's what they talk about when they say like internalized biases.
And they're like, this is what represents your entire community, and then they expect me to change or like to call out my community constantly when the vast majority of us are not sex pests or rapists or anything like that. We just want to live our lives.
Right. However, I mean, the internet always gets a fat W. So after my first tweet, they took this video that I made that was pure satire, that I'm using pronouns now. And I said at the end of it, my pronouns are like,
you, not really, plus the what? Someone in the YouTube chat's trying to woke scold me. No, I refuse.
like win or some shit. They edited it to make it seem like I had a change of heart, and like the trans community like blew this edited video up to make me like this trans icon all over Reddit and all over Twitter, and shit like that is just funny. So once that popped off, I went along with the meme and put out that Hogwarts Legacy tweet. But it was like, I mean, obviously I'm trolling, right? Obviously.
Oh yeah, I saw the Ukrainian flag and I'm like, there's no way you're not fucking trolling, but I still thought it was a good tweet.
Of course.
It was a good tweet because it literally had the outcome of legitimately just decimating a lot of conservatives that follow him. The Quartering had a meltdown over it. It was really funny. We had a great time making fun of all the people that Keemstar admittedly triggered. This was a Keemstar W. He was trolling, but he literally just ended up trolling the right. They're the ones who got mad and seethed. So that's a Keem W, one way or another.
I think my biggest issue is being labeled, all these fucking things when it just based on what, I don't like being on any team. I really don't. I don't like being on a political team. I feel like herd mentality has like stolen the individual thoughts of so much.
God, this is like the idea that poisons pseudo-intellectuals. They feel as though in order to be intelligent, they have to be a unique, like, thinker, right? Like, to tie yourself to a political party, to a side politically, or to even identify with one. To be fair, tying yourself to a political party is not smart. That is not reasonable. However, like, identifying with a political party that best suits your or best aligns with your ideals is completely reasonable. Keemstar thinks that aligning yourself with a political party or identifying with one makes you partisan, which it does, but he thinks that being partisan is inherently bad, or at least he's giving that impression. And I've heard a lot of arguments for why supposedly being partisan is bad, but I'm sorry, time and time again, the right just keeps proving they're evil. Like, they want to take minorities' rights away. They want to take away trans people's rights. They're trying to get rid of gay marriage. They got rid of Roe v. Wade. They are actively trying to not... They're doing the detransition bills in like, Oklahoma and trying to push it in Florida and Texas. Like, it's not like an equal... One side is equal to the other thing anymore. It's like one side is actively trying to unexist a minority group. The other side is trying to fight against it. But every time that other side fights against it too hard, all the normies and centrists are like, whoa, compromise?
So many individuals online that, you know, you just can't be on a team. You can never really be on a team and be free, in my opinion.
It's a hard balancing act, you know, because community is really important, but at the same time, you can.
I just leave the team if you don't agree with it. Then, like, when I disagree with lefties, I call them out. Being a progressive does not mean that other progressive people that I disagree with have to be like ignored, and I have to be okay with that. Like, I think probably half the content I do, maybe not half, a quarter of the content I do is like dunking on other lefties for representing the left really poorly. And I think that content is important because that dunking on bad examples of the left brings in conservatives that then watch my dunks of the right, and then they end up being trans girls. It's pretty funny. They always end up being trans girls. I've gotten way more messages lately than usual from trans women telling me that they were de-radicalized by my content. I don't know if like something changed, if the planets aligned or something, but yeah, it happens.
Never really count on a community to have your back.
Right. Well, do you find that in your community, that in some ways you're a leader, but just like interviewing me, you got a ton of hate, right?
Oh yeah, no, people were calling me out and saying all sorts of nasty shit, but I'm also used to that. I'm sure you're used to that kind of shit too.
Oh, all the time. All the time. But I think the troll in both of us makes us kind of invincible, where others are not. You know, a lot of other YouTubers, TikTokers, whatever, it's like they're trying to like one up the crowd
Goats.
on the wokeness scale.
Yeah, I don't know. I never asked to be a leader. They kind of put me in this position. They treat me like I'm one just because I have a bigger platform than a lot of other trans people. When really, I'm a fucking Twitch streamer, dude.
Really be like that.
Well, you had wild success shutting down that website, right? I mean, that's a really, really big deal. And I know you've been criticized a lot for it, for taking it too far. But ever since that happened, you've been seen as a leader in the space.
It was insane. Like, the website still goes up and down periodically. You know, they're constantly jumping host to host, provider to provider. But the fact I took on like this $16 billion company and got them to drop a website after they said explicitly we're not going to do that, that's one of my proudest moments.
Right. What happened with the lawsuit and, you know, the police and all that? I think I seen somewhere that it all got dropped.
Oh no, actually, I just got an email from my lawyer today. The draft of the human rights complaint that I'm sending in.
Interesting. So everyone's been swatted. I've been swatted so many times. My family's been swatted. Pretty much my whole career. The first time I was swatted was in 2010, and they shut down my entire little town that I lived in at the time. I've never been able to get any justice in that aspect at all. And the police, the FBI have never been able to find these people. I did have good luck with a lot of police departments where they'll just call me now when they get a swatting, as opposed to breaking down.
The goal is to make it so that everybody knows what swatting is. And the police departments have to put in safeguards against it. They've done it in Seattle.
My door. My question is what do you hope is the result of you going that route?
I mostly want more clarifications, I want more clarifications from them around what happened so people can stop spreading misinformation. I want to make sure that these kind of situations don't happen again to other people, because that was fucking terrifying. You know, people die from this shit. Right.
I covered it. I interviewed a swatter, and part of my interview aided the police in finding the individual that did it. But two teens were playing Call of Duty. The bet was for $1 single. they were doing esports and
Holy
they were playing against
shit.
each other, and there was an argument at the end of it, and one threatened to swat the other, and the person that was threatened said, "Go ahead, swat me," and gave him a fake address. But one teen took the fake address, went to a known swatter in the community, and said, "Go ahead and swat this guy for me, please." So he swats that address. Cops come.
Mhm.
They go to an address where nobody's involved at all, and innocent individual came out with like a bat or something. Police shot and killed him, and it was
That was the first swatting story that really hit the mainstream. There was also Kutra from the Creatures in the Creatures office who got swatted, and that video was pretty big too. When Jordan from the Creatures with the red hat was swatted, that got swatting on the radar really big in like 2013, 2014, I think.
was just absolutely devastating. So I interviewed the swatter, which I couldn't believe that he would come on and talk. And
That's-
because of my
Yeah, that's fucked. Like, did he just like, how do you hide his identity well enough that you could like confirm who he was without him getting arrested?
So his name was Swat-tastic, and he was a known swatter. And what I didn't know is he was actually caught once before, but released from prison early for good behavior or some shit. So when I interviewed him, the police were able to identify him by his voice, and they went and arrested him like right after my interview, like within 24 hours. But the guy had no remorse whatsoever. He blamed everything on the cops. It was a wild, wild case. But after he got arrested, he got hit with 20 years.
Okay, that's based. That's fucking awesome. I'm really happy that something comes out of that where people get punished for that shit.
Yeah, they covered my interview. This is going all the way back to, I want to say 2016 or 2015. They covered my interview with that swatter in a Netflix series. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but it was wild.
I did want to ask because like you
Keemstar
said, the
on
Hogwarts
Netflix?
Legacy thing was a bit. Do you actually?
Flix?
What is your actual position on Hogwarts Legacy? Because I see people going back and forth about it.
So here's the thing. I know little about what J.K. Rowling has done and said that would be considered transphobic or whatever. I really don't know much about it. I just know the trans community has been at her ass for like years now. And obviously I'm really tuned into the gaming community. I've seen a lot of people, talking about how they're gonna buy extra copies, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a great troll. I'm gonna fuck with all these people
Oh my God.
that are tripling down on, people like the Quartering who are planning to buy 50 copies. to
Oh my
counter-
God, I hate this culture war shit. Like, like get rid of all the trans arguments about Hogwarts Legacy. Being a Harry Potter fan in 2023 is more cringe than being a brony in 2023. Just like fucking cut it out.
It's just, I knew firing out that tweet would, piss off the Quartering types and whatnot. And it was such an obvious troll.
It's true. It's true. Come on. The game's gonna probably be fun from what we've seen of it, but like, Harry Potter is like an entire franchise. Just let it die.
I mean, you recognized it right away.
Oh, yeah.
It was a bit. And you have like the Quartering falling for it and people like that. And it's just, it's hilarious.
It is really funny how easy it is to get him to have a meltdown on Twitter and then delete all his tweets. It's like he does that every week.
Dude, I called him out on Twitter, and a lot of people from, I guess, your community
Yeah.
or whatnot were like, oh, he's having a change of heart. He's going after the Quartering. I've always hated the Quartering. Go search.
I think
my
it's
Twitter
because you're
feed.
calling him out over trans stuff now. You just hated him before because he was a piece of shit in other ways.
Yeah.
And it was like,
Well,
well, you were doing like,
Hakon, imagine the wand combat in Hytale just blows Hogwarts Legacy out of the water. Just imagine.
saying you're learning and you're changing your mind, and then the Hogwarts Legacy tweet that you do like right after that.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I was like fucking howling. Like I was just on my couch and I was like, okay, I'm gonna send Keemstar a co-tweet that just says trans rights. And holy shit. I think thousands of people's brains just fucking exploded. It was incredibly funny.
I responded to that in under a minute.
It's pretty great.
I'm sitting there watching YouTube in my living room, just chilling, watching YouTube on TV. And I see like this DM of an invite. I open it up. I'm like, yes. And I knew that would pop off the way it did. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm not a transphobic person, but all
We need to show Keemstar that transphobes are funnier and easier to troll, okay? Trolling transphobes will literally make them have the most moralistic meltdowns you could possibly imagine on Twitter. It's glorious. It's beautiful. It's glorious. If we can just like direct Keemstar's troll energy towards those people, he'll realize very quick that is where all the good content, all the good juice, all the good juice is there.
also, I know very little. Like when it comes to trans issues, I'm constantly hitting up the head of Dromler, who is trans, Gino, and asking questions. Because I don't know. Like, I just don't know.
That's honestly, that's good. Like I'm glad like when you're confused about something, you're actually reaching out to trans people. Because there's so much misinformation out there that it's actually hard sometimes to know what's true. I fall for fake news all the time and only realize afterwards.
Right.
Yeah. Like with the Hogwarts Legacy thing, like the crux of the reason that people don't want you to buy it is basically like over the last several years, J.K. Rowling has been supporting like anti-trans organizations that are pushing bills that make it harder to transition, or bills that make it illegal to like go into a women's washroom if you're a trans woman, that kind of shit. And because she owns the intellectual properties of Harry Potter, she makes money off royalties. And they want people to send a message by not buying it. I wasn't going to buy it either way because I think Harry Potter is just really cringe. But that's why people are having this back and forth.
Well, I think if people really want to boycott this game, but they do want to play the game, there's a way to do it. It's simple. Go buy a physical copy at GameStop. Someone else has already bought it. They've sold it to GameStop. You then buy the physical copy.
That is true.
The company is not making any extra money on you buying that used physical copy.
I have another solution, but I don't want to get banned on Twitch. So
I
don't think on my game getter.
Yeah, but the people saying that are really.
Yo ho fiddle-dee, being a pirate is alright with me. We do what we want and we do what we please. We are a pirate.
Risking, they're risking getting in trouble because
the One Piece is real.
I would imagine with this much hype that the company is going to crack down on the people that are doing that.
Sorry, I accidentally hit the fucking I hit the wire on my mic again, and oh my god, what a fucking nightmare. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think more the Hogwarts Legacy thing is about sending a message. Is about actually making a dent in J.K. Rowling's income. Like, she's going to be a rich old white woman no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's not much you can do. But
the goal of the boycott isn't necessarily to have a substantial hit to the sales of the game, but for there to be a massive social media outrage over J.K. Rowling's belief, and there to be a public boycotting, right? Because even if the game does succeed, even if the game does succeed massively, that still gets across at least some level of the message of people are still pissed, you know? Shanties are awesome. Sea shanties do go hard.
I can tell you this, JK won't be rolling in my money.
That's so true, Keem. That's such a good line.
I feel like it's a good stopping point. I don't know. I think Keemstar is a massive troll who, it's hard to tell when he's being sincere or not. He could have memed this entire thing that we just watched, but assuming that he is like a decent person, all of this is legit, my assumption is that like Keemstar wants to feel like he does not belong to any political group, because if he ties himself to that, then he is basically, you know, breaking out of the free thinking. You know, he wants to be a centrist. He wants to be the free thinker, right? And he believes that tying himself to a political group stops that somehow, despite the fact that it is quite easy to just, you know, disagree with the people who you politically align with, which I do all the time. But I don't know. Maybe somebody who's watching this had similar thoughts to Keemstar, and now I've answered some of their questions. With all that said, if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, subscribe, ring the bell icon, comment down below. It really helps out my channel more than I think you guys realize. Of course, you can also follow my social medias, which are all linked down below in the description. And don't forget that you can also support me financially on my website, xanderhall.com/live, by either donating or gifting a sub, or just straight up subbing for yourself by clicking one of those two buttons up there. You can also support me on YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, and Patreon. With all that said, thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.